Kurt Ranowski, publisher of Yankee T News, back with you again on this Monday, April 14th, the year of our Lord 2025, which, by the way, is my brother's birthday. Happy birthday, Gary, you wacky liberal. So yes, there's so many places to go this time, but we'll try and stick with it. So the theme for the week is simply this: trade war. Could China turn violent? See, what should be clear to people is that the amount of pressure and the type of pressure that is being put on China is, for them, unprecedented. And we're only beginning. So they've already had some responses. What kind of engagement President Trump will develop as this trade war unfolds is still kind of open to debate, but I'll just start with the first one. A lot of people are talking about how it's inevitable that China will take a knee and give in, especially since you have a number of other nations around the world who are willing to work with the United States against China. Now, it's not as easy as it seems because China already has a strong presence in Southeast Asia, in South America. So they're not without their options as far as that's concerned. So the first thing before I get into bus weasels, is, will China take a bow or will they punch back? And just to cut to the chase, I suggest that maybe eventually they will, but it won't be without a fight. And what a fight it will be. So let's start with just one. China just announced that they plan on flooding the world markets with 1.3 billion in cheap goods, meaning they're going to crank up production and they're going to try and crush the businesses of many countries in response. Well, okay, I don't know if it's going to work, but that's what they think will work. Okay. Now, my reaction to this is, yeah, okay, not very imaginative, kind of a blunt tool, and success is uncertain. So, yeah, now the problem here is, let's talk about China's capacity for violence. Now, it's a little hard to describe this, but I'm going to mention Tiananmen Square. We've heard of that. That was an act of violence. Okay, we've had a few cases where China has ventured outside its own borders to engage in warfare. Those didn't work out very well. So you'd think that this would kind of mitigate against any consideration of violence, but I don't think it's beyond them. Think of what happened when Mao had no problem starving to death 40 to 50 million of his own people and not even think twice about it. This just plays into the stereotype of the Eastern mindset as putting a very low value on human life. Still true? I would say it's still true, yes. They operate in a different set of circumstances, but these cultural values die hard. So the other part here, so Erik did a little search, a ChatGPT query on the difference between Eastern and Western values. And I think the thing that I was focusing on was about the difference in the war planning think tanks, China versus America. And the ChatGPT response was basically that China takes a more, shall we say, nuanced approach. They take a more long-term view approach. They think in terms of influence. They think in terms of, supposedly nonviolent ways of eventually taking control. Dare I say the phrase captured elites. So they've gotten pretty good at captured elites. They find our weaknesses, and they've known how to exploit them. But now with President Trump running the show, I think there's a growing awareness that that just isn't going to work anymore. Western values for when it comes to war planning is hit them hard and make sure you win. Okay, so we're about the guns, the ships, the ammunition, battle strategies. The Red Chinese, not so much, but that may have to change. And then, of course, people will ask, what about Taiwan? Clearly, they're pursuing a very slow, gradual, kinetic war answer to their conflict with Taiwan. All right. But this has proceeded on the assumption that there would not be a lot of interference and that they would do things in their long-term planning that would weaken the ability of America and other countries to fight back against them once they decide to take Taiwan. Is it going to work? Have they made the right decisions? Are they doing the right things? I don't know, but the point is that they continue to build their military, and they are seen as posing a threat. However, you got to bear with me. This is important. There's another perspective. There's a gentleman. He's a scholar. He's from the Netherlands. His last name is Dictor or Decatur, and he's studied China for many decades, and he will tell you that in his judgment, even though China continues to pursue a very aggressive policy of shipbuilding and building out their navy and the rest of their military, they're not everything they're cracked up to be. He said that it's typical of a communist country to put a lot into appearing strong militarily, quite frankly, when they're not. So he's been there, he's seen it, and so he believes that, China may not be in such a good position. All of that said, I want to close this part here with this one concern, all right? Here's the rhetorical question. If you are confronted with the possibility, all right, that you can win, now here's what the weird part is, that you can win in the sense of holding on to power even though you are defeated, and do so at great cost. Great cost to you, great cost to your enemy. Will you do it? And the suggestion is communists love power so much, yes, they would rather rule over the ashes rather than do the right thing. So China's capacity for violence, I'd say it's significant, and you have to plan for it. All right, so that's my part there. So let's move on to the good old news. Good old news. So because of these trade tariffs, what has happened now is the liberal media press has gone out of its way to do everything they can to make it seem like what President Trump has done is just a bad idea. That said, I think the kinds of arguments that you're seeing are pretty lame. So courtesy of, let's see, who produced this one here? Okay, it's a group called Deep Dive. I guess they're responding to other people doing this, but the argument is that somehow China can use this 25,000 tons of gold as a way to do damage with the US dollar. I'm not so sure, okay? But this is the argument that they want to make. How are you going to wage a trade war with gold? What, you're going to settle trade in gold bars? I think that's got its limits. That, that's been one of the lesser attractions with it being on a gold standard. Okay, so this, I think, is a specious argument, but it's an argument being made nonetheless. That's one. The other is that the argument, the Washington Post tries to stand up and say, oh, this is hopeless. There's no way America can win a trade war against China. And they try to, in my judgment, overblow, exaggerate the problems that we're going to go through. Yes, we can see prices go up. Yes, there could be an increase in inflation. Yes, oh my God, I'm going to say it. We could even have a recession. Now, before I continue with that point, I want to make another point. It is often been said that when one economy is having problems, they will tend to export those problems to another country. So, for example, if China is going through a phase of deflation, those deflationary forces can be sent to another country like America. Well, guess what? It has been now for 2 months straight, that's only 2 months, that prices in China have gone down. In other words, they're experiencing deflation. Now, nobody wants to call it a recession, but it's still the idea that the economy is in some fashion weakening, all right? Now, just to be a little contradictory, although in China's case it may not apply, sometimes, I'm going to use as my reference a gentleman named Harry Dent, who writes a financial newsletter. He's made the argument that every economy has to go through a phase where you have a recession. A recession cleans out all the bad businesses, all the bad ideas, You subject businesses to the, quote, brutal metabolism of the marketplace. And once that is all taken care of, then you're ready to start on a new cycle of growth. That's his argument. He says it's a cycle that's been repeated over and over again in the history of business. So expect it to happen again. Is it going to happen to China? Maybe, maybe not. But one of his other points is, in this country, we've been fighting the recession. All the overspending by Biden et al. Has been to avoid it. Now, I guess for political reasons, but no. It just may be that a recession is inevitable. And now that these trade tariffs are being brought forth, that may be enough to bring about the recession that we've needed all along. Okay, so there's something for the liberal media to think about. Okay, next. Oh, well, another point just to make it is, of course, there has been serious concern about treasury bonds, right? Now, we've seen the bond market not react very favorably to these tariffs. And so, some people who, are normally very ardent supporters of President Trump have started to pause a little bit, because when the bond market starts to respond, that's when you really need to listen to what's happening to the economy. Because if your creditworthiness is starting to suffer, you could find yourself in a significantly worse situation, especially when you're a big debt holder like, let me think, oh yeah, the U.S. government, yeah, big debt holder. Okay, so the bond market.
Big debt holder, U.S. government.
Yeah. Jeez. All right, so you get the idea. And some people suggest that some of the, quote, modifications that President Trump has pursued have been kind of in recognition that this could be a problem. All right, now, what's the next part here? Let me see. Okay, NATO, oh my goodness. All right, the title is NATO is Dying, which was inspired by another article that says, from a website called Discern, it says NATO is a corpse. And so they're citing the fact that the members of NATO are not working together well. They're having trouble pulling resources together. They're having trouble really mounting a serious response to what Putin is doing. All right, we'll accept that for now. We will accept that for now. I happen to agree that NATO is in bad shape. Still a number of the countries have not been able to pony up 2% of their GDP for defense. They know they've got to take care of that. On the plus side, there's a note, the EU countries committed over 23 billion euros for Ukraine so far in 2025. How effective is that going to be? How is that money going to be used? How much of it is going to be siphoned out of the country? Well, we can only guess. But if past is prologue, I think you have a pretty good idea. So that part put out there, I'm going to leave this subject with a thought. If you happen to see a caterpillar, okay, and that caterpillar, is going to become like a moth or a butterfly, well, what does it have to do? It has to make a cocoon or a chrysalis around itself. Well, if you don't know any better and you come upon that cocoon or chrysalis, you just see something that's dead. There's no sign that it's alive. What's happening is on the inside. So I'm going to propose a radical thought. NATO could undergo a transformation, much like the caterpillar turning into a butterfly. So there's my positive thinking for the day on that subject. Meantime, oh brother,
This is the look of a man.
Yes.
Who's asking you to share with your friends.
Yes.
The like. To be influenced erroneously. To subscribe.
Okay. How many courses in hypnotism have you taken?
0.
Yeah, 0. Okay. So, all right. So let me just get to the other part here. Get ready. Let me start with the shocking part first. There are these military airplanes. They're called C-130s. I did not know that it is possible to pack up to 1,000 people on a C-130. That is unbelievable. Okay, that's called heavy lift. So here's the thing. There's a gentleman, you may have heard of him. His name is Erik Prince. He runs this little security firm called Blackwater. And he's sort of a prominent figure in the world of security. He hires ex-military types to do private security for you name what needs protecting. And so now he stood up and he has a proposal. He would like to be able to use one of the bases in Texas, Fort Bliss or Fort Hood. I think the attention is focused on Fort Bliss, to create a staging area for processing illegal aliens. Now, the numbers they're throwing around do seem to be kind of impressive. He's thinking that the camp could hold about 10,000 people. Hold on to your hat. He thinks they can expand it to 100,000. So these seem like big numbers, ladies and gentlemen. But you have to keep in mind how many illegal aliens there are in this country to begin with. And depending upon who you're talking to, it's as little as 5 million, it could be as big as 30 million, it could be anything in between. Now, there are a couple parts of this proposal from Erik Prince that are a little troubling, and I will share them with you. So part of this is that there would be what's called a treaty of cession. This is very weird. So the idea that instead of a military camp, this camp becomes a U.S. territory? What? Okay. And then what they would do is they would take that land and they would cede control of it to El Salvador. So you have an immigration processing camp run by El Salvador in Texas. I'm not comfortable with that. Just letting you know, okay? And I don't know how you feel about it, but
we're allowing the Muslims to build a city in Texas.
well, but it's the same. It's the same Texas who wants to make Sharia law illegal. So we'll see. Okay, it's called. Stay tuned on that.
And
Okay.
Happy birthday, Mr. Hood.
Yes.
Oh, sure.
Happy birthday to you.
All right.
Make your day to see.
Okay, boys. Enough of this back chatter here. Okay.
Give this present to you.
All right, so this is a program and work and project we will see. Okay, that's that one. Now, unbelievable. An 18-year-old, very patriotic student went before the school board. He's from the Towson High School in Baltimore. And he was there to ask the board, why are there no American flags in a number of the classrooms in the high school? For this, he got arrested. That's right. I'm guessing it was whoever headed up the Board of Education called the police. 3 police cars show up. He gets arrested. He gets suspended, all because he asked this question. There's something wrong with these people. So,
Wow.
yes, wow. All right. Now, as a follow-up, these classrooms did get flags put in them. They did respond, but boy, that's a hell of a way to do it. So I'm going to highly recommend this. Get a screenshot of this. And yeah, you might want to email her. I didn't put up her phone number, but find her phone number. She's the principal of the high school, and you get to complain to her and tell her and whoever is responsible for that are out of their minds. They owe the student an apology. He will be suing you, and he will want reparations of his own, right? He'll want to be paid for the pain and suffering they caused him. This is a guy, by the way, he's 18 years old who's getting ready to join the Marines, okay? He'll still be a patriot, but boy, oh boy, that's something else. Okay, now, as I lead up, this is the best part coming up. Stick around. Don't go away yet. Okay, I'm just going to make a point here. You may recognize this face, Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? I just need to point out that Marjorie Taylor Greene is not a person who hides her face. And in fact, if you haven't heard, she's made a rather strong request to Congress. She wants everybody in Congress to submit to mandatory drug testing and cognitive testing, just like what was done with President Trump. Every member of Congress. I think that's a fabulous idea. We should all call up Congress and tell them, Marjorie's right. We want mandatory drug testing. That's right. We want to see congressmen peeing in those bottles and testing them for marijuana, cocaine, and every other goddamn thing they shouldn't be taking.
Hot sauce.
Yeah, hot sauce. All right, now, next. All right. You have to remember that President Trump is the king of trolling, all right? So poor Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, she was called into the Oval Office expecting to be part of a signing ceremony, and nope, sorry, there you go. When she found out that she was there involving an executive order related to election fraud, that's what we got right there. She covered her face. It's like, excuse me, you got the press there. You're in the Oval Office, and that's your reaction? You cover your face? Oh my God. Okay, so here you go. There's something to think about, okay? All right, you know, a lot of people are puzzled. They don't know what to make of it. What was she thinking? I'll tell you what she was thinking. Guilty as hell. This, ladies and gentlemen, this is what a whore in a church does, okay? So just let that sink in. God. All right. Moving on. We're almost done. All right, where'd the best part go here? All right, Tina Peters, I want to remind you, we got to put pressure on the governor. We're not letting this one get away from us. He needs to be reminded that federal funding needs to be taken away from him, all of it, every last penny, until he releases her. Got it? Get it.
Good.
Okay. Meantime, where was the other thing here? Okay, we'll call this an allegation, all right? We don't know if it's factually true or not. On one side of the ledger, you have the allegation that DOJ has discovered that Jasmine Crockett, freshman congressional representative, for 13 years has been taking the Social Security payments, $2,600 a month, for the last 13 years of her dead grandmother. Okay? That is what DOJ supposedly found. Now, it's the kind of inflammatory thing where, you know what, we'd like a little proof, okay? A little something to back it up. So we're still waiting for that. Jasmine did come out and deny it, so fine. Okay, other people said it's false, it's fake information, fake news. We'll find out, but I felt it was only fair to share both sides of this story with you and let you decide. Okay, meantime, there's this, if you're still with me here and kind of following along, I've made this point before and I need to make it again. President Putin's conduct has been abysmal. Okay, firing 2 ballistic missiles at that town, S-U-M-Y, Sumy, in Ukraine is absolutely appalling. Okay, so all of that said, okay, some people would say he's continuing to pressure to try to get the best possible deal in a ceasefire agreement. Maybe. But I have a different take. Okay, so here it is. As I've said before, President Putin would be a very unhappy camper if the ceasefire were based upon where the lines are right now, okay? Because it needs to be reemphasized, there are geopolitical considerations with what constitutes defensible borders for Russia. And the current arrangement around the rim of Ukraine ain't it. In fact, it's very unsatisfactory for Russia. So Putin is less than pleased with the prospect of that being where the lines are going to be drawn. So if he could change it up in any way, he'd like to do it. All right, so I just wanted to share that little tidbit with you. And let's see, a couple other things here. Then there was President Trump's frustrated tweet about what's going on, okay? My reaction, and I have to stop myself, take a deep breath, is that if Putin's going to act this way, all bets are off, okay? Unfortunately, we're going to have to revert probably to a much more aggressive approach towards Russia, whatever it looks like. We still have tools in the box, I guess, with respect to finance and sanctions and stuff. But you know what? I think none of that's going to be good enough. And we know that in spite of the sanctions that were passed, Russia has still managed to prosper. And in some ways, their economies have been better performing than other people's economies. All right, meantime, the attack on Governor Shapiro's house, all right, so there was Cody Balmer is his name. So again, it's been pointed out that the police are covering up what his motive is. What we do know is that somehow Josh Shapiro had something to do with him and his grandmother being kicked out of a house. And so this is him seeking revenge, maybe, but we need more information than that. Another tidbit is it turns out that Boston Mayor Michelle Wu in 2021 may have received hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations from a Chinese intelligence official. More information is pending. In Sweden, now you have an article. I mean, what is it taking the Swedes so long to figure this out? Oh my God, these guys hate you. The Muslims hate you. They want to kill you. They want to get rid of you, and you're tolerating this. What is the matter with you people? So now, as the article says, too many Islamic child soldiers to count in Sweden. Too many. What are you people going to do something about this? It's mind-bending. All right, and speaking of mind-bending, the very last thing I want to touch on before I go, I didn't put up here, sorry, is I wish I could remember this sort of Rules of Finance or something, is this YouTube channel, and the gentleman there did a great job of reviewing all the evidence concerning what happened on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania, in the assassination attempt. So he lists them all. There's a lot of things, you know, clearly more than one gunman. The argument that the dead body on the roof was not Michael Crooks, but a guy named Erik. But the one... Matthew Erik, I'm sorry. So, Matthew Crooks and Michael Erik. Okay. Meantime, dramatic pause. Meantime, okay?
Meantime.
He reviewed this clip, okay, that was like in the 15 to 30 seconds after the shots were fired, okay? What he shows you, what he points out to you, makes abundantly clear. If you're being intellectually honest with yourself, it is clear as day that the Secret Service was trying to kill Trump. Okay, so how do we get there? My theory, my conjecture, the backstory is that after that shot was fired and there was all this chaos, whatever backup plans they had, and they had them, they could not follow through on them. Let me explain. When you see this clip this guy puts up, okay, it's at the moment where they're kind of pushing Trump into the car. First, you see this one Secret Service agent who's looking into the audience, and he does this. Do you know what that is? In the military, that means hold, stop. Whatever you're doing, stop. A military guy sending a signal that only another military guy would understand who's in the audience. Did he have a gun? We'll never know, unless we really get to the bottom of it. Meantime, it gets even better. While he's doing this, in the front of the car, you see a soldier in camo, and he's taking his rifle and he's pointing it right at the car. Wait, before that, he's fumbling and he's doing this, okay? And then he's clearly responding to what somebody is telling him, all right? And whatever that person is telling him, he's getting ready to shoot into the car. Oh my God, okay? But then somebody else shouts some countermanding instruction and he stops. Seconds after that, two Secret Service guys come over to get out, get out, get out. And he turns and he runs and he's gone, okay?
And we'll post the video.
This, sorry, it looks like a conspiracy to me, and this is the part where they had to change direction at the last second because it wasn't working. To think that they even had plans, that they would do something like that, is unbelievable. These people need to be brought to justice. Pam Bondi, stop screwing around. Get these people. Good night.